I have fantastic news for Fantastic Four fans. It turns out Dan Slott's 4-year run is coming to an end in August. Today, in the Thor issue, and probably a few others that came out from Marvel Comics, there's a promo in there, and it states that Fantastic Four 46 is the culmination, the very final episode of Dan Slott's Fantastic Four run. What an odd choice to put Dan Slott on Fantastic Four, and they pretty much put him on that, as well as Iron Man at the exact same time after he finished up his Spider-Man run. The unfortunate part is Dan Slott's Spider-Man run wasn't exactly beloved. Yeah, it sold because it was Spider-Man, and Dan Slott really hasn't written anything that was really popular in years, so to give him 2 assignments when he could barely handle one, and then one of them being kind of the reintroduction of the Fantastic Four in Marvel Comics. They hadn't produced a Fantastic Four comic series in a while. They hadn't taken it really seriously, really, since Jonathan Hickman was on the title. I think a lot of people were excited for Fantastic Four to finally return to Marvel Comics until they saw Dan Slott and they said, well, maybe we'll have better luck next time with the next writer. They decided to nope out, which isn't surprising because Dan Slott has cultivated a very negative reputation within comic books, specifically with the fans and the way he treats them. He likes to talk down to people. He's one of those guys that really thinks his crap doesn't stink, even though everything he writes pretty much does stink. Although, interestingly enough, of all the things Dan Slott's written probably over the last, I'll say 8 years, his Fantastic Four thing is the least offensive one of them. There's actually been kind of some, I wouldn't call them high notes or high spots, but there's some things in there that aren't bad, and that was a big step up. You know, his Iron Man run, now that was bad. I don't know what they were thinking, giving Dan Slott a cool character like Tony Stark Iron Man. That blew up in their faces. If you read Iron Man 2020, the big event from Dan Slott on that title, oh my goodness, that is one of the worst comic book stories you will ever read in your life. But Fantastic Four wasn't that bad. It was merely kind of average. But by that point, Dan Slott had kind of already worn his welcome out. The Iron Man stuff had already come out. It really sucked. He did get a lot of opportunities to do things that were cool during his Fantastic Four run, which started in August of 2018 and will be concluding in August of 2022. So a nice, healthy 4-year run. You would expect there to be something really memorable to come out of there. He did get the Empyre event that he co-wrote with Al Ewing, which was a Fantastic Four Avengers event. That was bringing in some lore from old Fantastic Four stuff. You got to see the swordsman and all that stuff. Mantis was in there, and a lot of old lore from like the 70s and 80s from the Avengers specifically showing up in that story. Very not memorable, not very good. Fortunately for Dan Slott, the sales were much better than they should have been because they had just come out of the pandemic and people wanted to buy something new. They wanted to support Marvel Comics, and that's what they had going at the time. So it certainly did sell better than the quality of the product. I will give him that, but nothing really memorable came out of that. He's also got the Reckoning War event going on right now in Fantastic Four, and it's not doing anything for anybody. The prelude to Reckoning War came out in Fantastic Four in January. That issue was ranked number 57 in the January sales. Reckoning War number 1, Alpha, whatever you want to call it, that came out in February. That was only number 39. And the last issue of Fantastic Four in May that we have numbers for was number 53. So despite having a big event that was supposedly a decade in the making, Dan Slott has been working on this. He's been masterminding this big event for Fantastic Four for a decade, and no one cared. Very few people are buying a comic book because Dan Slott's name is on it, but I know a ton of people that will avoid a comic book series because Dan Slott's name's on it. And that's a big problem for Marvel Comics. If he was working at DC, he would be writing Batman by now. Fortunately, Marvel Comics seems to take a lot of their important characters a little bit more seriously. You probably aren't going to see him on Spider-Man or any of their top sellers, but Fantastic Four deserves a better fate than Dan Slott. I think we can all agree on that. This is the first family of comic books. Fantastic Four number 1 is the most important comic issue in the history of Marvel Comics, even more important than Amazing Fantasy 15. In my opinion, that is the genesis of the Marvel Comics universe as we know it. All the heroes, all the wonderful multiversal ideas generated by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby all generate from there. That is where the Marvel Comics universe I know and love comes from. So they need to do something cool with the characters. The Fantastic Four is absolutely amazing. I know most people are like me, and if you had a dream writer on the project, it would be Chip Zdarsky. Before Dan Slott was announced for Fantastic Four, he had that Marvel 2-in-1 with the Thing and Johnny Storm. That comic book was amazeballs, especially when they had the original artists and stuff on it. It kind of degraded after that, and by the end of it, you could tell they just didn't care about the story because they had one of the worst artists I could ever see. I don't even remember the name at this point, but it was just awful. But that story that Chip Zdarsky wrote really primed the return of the Fantastic Four, and everybody that read it loved it. It was amazing. And I think everybody was champing at the bit, waiting for Chip Zdarsky to get announced as the new Fantastic Four writer. Of course, we were all disappointed that it was Dan Slott, but I think that time, that opportunity for Marvel Comics to put Chip Zdarsky on the title is over. He's doing the Daredevil series, obviously for Marvel, and it's doing very well, but he's about to be the mainline Batman writer. With that comes a lot of responsibility. With that comes a lot of event books, like crossovers and stuff like that. So I don't think Chip Zdarsky is really just going to have the time to work on Fantastic Four unless he wants to wrap up his Daredevil series, which is just now rebooting to #1. So unfortunately, Chip Zdarsky is likely off the table because he just isn't available right now. Another writer that I think would do really good for Fantastic Four, although I haven't seen Jeff Lemire really work with Marvel nearly as much as he has with DC, but Jeff Lemire really had the last great Fantastic Four comic book series. Unfortunately, it wasn't called Fantastic Four. It was called The Terrifics during the New Age of Heroes when that launched. The Terrifics is the series that lasted the longest, and that was an amazing team-up book, lots of family dynamics. Obviously, a little bit different than the Fantastic Four, but very, very similar. It was DC Comics kind of knockoff of that, and Jeff Lemire really knocked that thing out of the park. He did some really good stuff in that series, so I think he would be a really good choice to kind of take over the Fantastic Four. Another writer that would be a good choice, and this one makes a little bit more sense than Jeff Lemire and Chip Zdarsky just kind of because of what they're doing, but Peter David is doing fantastic work on a lot of miniseries right now for Marvel Comics. Obviously, he's been doing the Maestro stuff. He did Symbiote Spider-Man. He's going to be doing the new Fantastic Four. He's doing a lot of these like throwback 90s miniseries. Peter David deserves an ongoing series in Marvel Comics. He's probably their best writer right now, right up there with Chip Zdarsky and Donny Cates. As far as quality, I'd put him over them because I think he's knocking every single thing he does right now out of the park. He would be a great writer for Fantastic Four. He's more than earned a promotion into the mainline ongoing continuity if he wants it. Another good choice that's in-house, although Zeb Wells is writing the Amazing Spider-Man series, I think he would do a crackerjack job on a Fantastic Four series. His Hellion series over at X-Men has been, without a shadow of a doubt, the very best X-Men comic series and story since Jonathan Hickman's House of X Powers of 10. That thing was a great team book. He did a lot of great things, although it was more edgy than I think people would like to see with the Fantastic Four. But I do think Zeb Wells can work within a system and really highlight a team. I think he would be a good choice. I know a lot of people will likely say Donny Cates. He's the big guy at Marvel Comics. He's the it factor at Marvel Comics. I think he would be a terrible choice, although I would understand why they would put him on Fantastic Four if they wanted to give a big-name writer that would generate a lot of sales. The problem is Donny Cates is way too edgy. He would just do all kinds of weird stuff, I think, with the Fantastic Four. I don't think that team really fits what he does. Now, a couple of out-of-the-box suggestions I would have. One of them would be Peter J. Tomasi. Obviously, he's most well-known for his work on DC Comics. He's done a lot of great stuff there. I think he would fit right in on a Fantastic Four book. The kind of heroes Peter J. Tomasi likes to write and the types of stories he's really good at fits perfectly in line with the Fantastic Four. Obviously, he's not exclusive to DC Comics anymore. He's got his own work going on in Image, and it seems like he's got an open plate right now. You could probably get him in there. The other person I would suggest certainly has worked with Marvel Comics in the past, has done a lot of cosmic work, would be Dan Abnett. Dan Abnett is a wonderful comic book writer, and what he really excels at is highlighting and accentuating and raising the bar on female superheroes, specifically within groups. I think he would do a great job with Sue Storm. I think he would do a great job with the whole team. He loves the cosmic stuff. The Fantastic Four is the introduction to the cosmic Marvel Comics universe, via Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and stuff like that. So I think he would be another really good choice. Of course, they're not going to do that. They're going to put Vita Ayala or Christopher Can't Write Well or any of the other creators that are destroying everything right now and then blame it on the fans. But Fantastic Four deserved better than Dan Slott. I'm glad he's gone. He did nothing memorable other than, I guess, declaring that Franklin Richards is no longer a mutant. That made no sense. That only been in continuity for decades upon decades upon decades. Then you get a hack like Dan Slott in there, changes everything. I guess he wanted Franklin Richards to be part of the Fantastic Four only group, and he didn't want to have to share him with the X-Men. So he wrote in this stupid storyline that he's not a mutant anymore. I don't think that was well received. In fact, I don't think anything Dan Slott did on Fantastic Four was well received. Even though it's kind of the best work he's done in maybe a decade, it still isn't that good. It's not memorable. I love the Fantastic Four. I'm champing at the bit for Marvel Comics to offer me a Fantastic Four series with anybody that I don't despise writing it, and I will be a customer. Some of you may ask, Wes, why do you despise Dan Slott? A lot of reasons. Most of it has to do with the way that he treats people. He also is not a very good comic book writer. If you would like to see an example of how big of a dickhead Dan Slott really is, I got this video here. He went in and he bullied my friend Jimmy, was just being very coercive, very manipulative, really bullying behavior. That's who Dan Slott is. He's not a good guy. He's a fucking villain.